we out here, and it's been a great day so far. Started off with a nice little run. Woke up late, was chilling, and went over to a friend's from there. Had some lunch, some home church, and now I'm back here. And home church is actually the reason I'm recording this video right now. There were a couple occasions. Well, let me start here. We did home church um, a few times over the last couple months, and I've gone to my friend's house to participate and be a part. And we've been studying some things that have really stood out to me, and I just wanted to talk about those things here. I'm also going to take these headphones out because they're kind of annoying. It makes any the computer. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. All right, MacBook Air. Hopefully that sounds good. Hopefully you can hear me all right. So if you're tapping in, if you can hear me good, drop a thumbs up or something. And if not, hey, I will get to Fortnite a little bit later, but I got some spiritual things to talk about real quick. So I'll get there. Appreciate y'all though. Appreciate it. So in our studying, we were talking about we went through Matthew. And it's pretty cool because doing church this way and studying through the Bible this way, you get to take your time with it. And I love that because there's a lot of good stuff here. I got my Bible right here, all beat up and everything after years of good use. um, and most church, you just go, you show up, and uh, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Most churches, you go, you show up, you participate, you do whatever the prescribed program is there, and you leave, you keep it pushing, and that's that. But here, we take turns reading through the scripture. We comment on it. Everybody goes around. There's time. There's pauses. No one is rushed. We're chilling in the moment there, while being able to reflect on the Word of God and see how it's speaking to us individually. Uh, and I really appreciate that. It's more than just somebody telling you, "Hey, this is what it is," because it's what I got, and this is the lesson that I want you to take in you when you go into your own life. And even with me saying that right now, I'm going to encourage you, whether you read the Bible a lot, whether it's something you're new to, whether it's something you may have never done, I would encourage you to go check out these particular verses we'll talk about here in this video, because yes, I will be sharing some of the things that stood out to me and some of the other observations from people who were there, but those may not necessarily speak to you. So, go check it out for yourself and see how the text speaks to you. But it's a good chunk of stuff here, so I'm going to jump right into it. And two times ago when we did Matthew 14 verses 13 through 21. And then today it was Matthew 14:22 through 36. So a pretty decent chunk today. But I'm going to start back from, it must have been a few weeks ago that we had home church. And I'll just start with the reading of the text, and then I'll talk about some of the things that stood out to me from it. So, and what's really cool about these two sections here, it's actually two really popular stories when it comes to Jesus and the miracles. The first one is the feeding of the 5,000. The second one is Peter walking on the water. So we'll start with that. Oh, look at that. Thumbs up. All right. Nice. All right. So Matthew 14, starting in verse 13. When Jesus heard it, he departed from there by boat to a deserted place by himself. But when the multitudes heard it, they followed him on foot from the cities. And when Jesus went out, he saw a great multitude, and he was moved with compassion for them and healed their sick. When it was evening, his disciples came to him, saying, "This is a deserted place, and the hour is already late. Send the multitudes away, that they may go into the villages and buy themselves food." But Jesus said to them, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." And they said to him, "We have here only 5 loaves and 2 fish." He said, "Bring them here to me." Then he commanded the multitudes to sit down on the grass. And he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he blessed and broke and gave the loaves to the disciples, and the disciples gave to the multitudes. So they all ate and were filled, and they took up 12 baskets full of the fragments that remained. Now, those who had eaten were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. This story, I mean, reading through it probably took, what, 2 minutes tops? But the events that are happening here are spanning potentially hours. So that's one thing that we have to look at or keep in mind when we're looking at scripture. It's very easy to read through it and not understand the pacing because of how quickly we get through it. But there's a lot going on here. And let's also consider the context. This is verse 13 said, when Jesus heard it. Well, heard what? The verses before are talking about the beheading of John the Baptist. John the Baptist was Jesus' cousin. So how do you react when you hear about things that happen to family members and loved ones? I can't imagine it's always going to be a positive reaction, right? You may feel emotional. You may not want to be around other people. But in Jesus' case, this is the humanity of Jesus coming through here, because it says that he departed when he heard this, when he heard what happened to his cousin, he departed from that place to go be by himself. And, you know, whenever you hear that kind of expression, by himself or by yourself, for me at least, I always think of introvert versus extrovert. And I'm an introvert. So being by myself is actually something that I enjoy. And it's cool to see that for all the public speaking and all the interacting with people that Jesus did, all throughout his experience and what's recorded in the Gospels here, that he was still very intentional about trying to find moments by himself. Granted, this one is happening in the context of something that he's very sad and upset about. But there are many other times, as we'll see in the next story, and maybe that's not the best example, but there are many other times when we get the idea that Jesus wants to spend time by himself. And there's a particular reason for that, and we'll get there. All right. So he goes trying to be by himself, but the multitudes are so caught up in the hype, they don't want to leave this guy alone. So they're chasing him down, and he's having the hardest of moments just trying to grieve or to find some peace or just be by himself and have a moment. And you know, even even for extroverts, I'm sure there are times when it's like, I'm good. I'm tired of the social atmosphere. It's time to go home from the party. You're not trying to do one more dance. You're not trying to get one more drink. Like, you're not trying to do all that, and people are still trying to get you in. I don't party like that, so I wouldn't know. But I'm sure for those of you who do, then you know what the flow is. But the point is, he's trying to be by himself, and these people will just not leave him alone. But for the frustration that he has in that moment, trying to be by himself, just people not wanting to let up and give you any kind of space at all. It says that he went out and he saw the great multitude, and he was moved with compassion for them, and he healed their sick. So even in a place of pain and hurt on the inside, he didn't let it impact how he related to other people. And I think that's huge, because just think about how we interact with things today. Think about how easy it is for us to feel a certain way on the inside, and then by our actions and the way that we carry ourselves around other people, now everybody else is getting a piece of that. An example for me, my first year as a missionary in Palau back in 2010. It's wild. It was a while ago, but um, I had I was having a pretty good year. It was pretty fun, and there was one particular moment I'll never forget. It was about halfway through. It was in the first half of the year, like November, December, something like that. My grandfather passed away, and I remembered having conversations with him the summer leading up. We didn't really keep in touch too much when I had left, um, but hearing about that, it put me in a dark place. I'm not gonna lie. I just felt this kind of boiling anger, this kind of resentment, this like I couldn't go home. I couldn't afford to go back home and fly back out. Those the tickets to get to Palau. Never mind the time. It takes 24 hours of flying to get there, but um, money wise, you're talking $1,600 to make that happen. It's like so I can't be there to support my family, and it's like I'm out here by myself. Who's going to support me? It was it was difficult to say the least. And I remember very clearly going through class, trying to put the smile on. I was the PE teacher, so I'm engaging with all these little kids, trying to teach them, and like the energy just wasn't there. The smile and hey, it's Coach Corey, like none of that was there. And that same night, we had a basketball game. We were playing in the city league there, and that might have been the angriest basketball game I've ever played in my life. Just like I'm out here, I'm hunting like with no regard. If I'm fouling you, I'm fouling the mess out of you. Like it was bad. It was bad. And like it kind of felt good a little bit to get the frustration and the energy out, but it didn't really address the pain and whatever it was that I was wrestling with in that moment. But Jesus was the complete opposite. He had something absolutely crazy, and it wasn't just that his cousin died, it's the way that his cousin died. If you don't know that story, check out the first part of Matthew chapter 14. I won't go into it now for the sake of time. But this was not some peaceful dying in your sleep kind of a thing. This was messed up. It was a really jacked up way for his cousin to die. He hears that, but he's able to put it inside. Even though he didn't get the chance to process it, he puts it inside. And when he sees other people coming to him for help, he's moved with compassion. And then he goes to actually help them and he heals their sick in a moment where he himself was feeling broken inside. He found the compassion to go and be a healing force for others. That's crazy. That's crazy. But that's what he did. That's what he did. And when I think about the next verse there, these people are here all day. I don't know how long it took Jesus to heal the multitudes of sick that were brought out to him. But in verse 15, it says something really interesting that the disciples come to him saying in the evening, this is a deserted place and the hour is already late. This is a deserted place. A deserted place is an empty place. So they're looking at this place like there's nothing there. And ironically, Jesus was probably looking at that place for its desertedness because he was trying to be by himself. But the disciples, Captain Obvious over here, and when you see their stories and the way that they engage with Jesus, you're like, y'all don't get this yet, but we're the same way too. So don't be too hard on the disciples. This is a deserted place. These people don't have anything to eat. Let them get any food. There's no food here. There's nothing here for these people. Let's send them away and be done with them for the day. But Jesus says, nah, you get it. You get something for them. And they're like, well, what are you talking about? We don't have any food. We don't have the money to get food. Like there's no purpose in us like drawing this on. Jesus, just send them home so we can keep it pushing. And I can only imagine, like, again, the next couple of verses go by really fast, but what we don't get to see is what did it look like for the disciples going around and asking people for food, and what was this interaction even like? Because they've already expressed that it's a deserted place, that there's nothing there. There's no food here. Send these people away to get something to eat. So what's their mentality when they're going around saying, well, what is Jesus talking about? How are we going to give them something to eat when we have nothing? And again, ironically, I love this stuff because it just pops in on the fly. But Jesus was also in a place where he felt like he had nothing. That's why he was trying to go to the deserted place. But in a couple verses earlier, even from that position of feeling like he had nothing and wanting to be alone, he was able to give something. There was healing and production from what felt like a deserted place. So it's almost like Jesus is playing like 4D chess with these guys. Like you don't see what's just happening, and they probably didn't understand how he felt in that moment. But he's saying, look, because of who I am and because of the connection that I have with God, I'm able to do this coming from this place. And it's almost like he dares them, you go do the same thing. Oh, it's a deserted place? Okay, cool. Give them something to eat. I can almost see Jesus almost like taunting them into it. Like and maybe even already knowing what he was gonna do. Like I wish I could have been there for that. This is one of those stories in the Bible where it's not good enough to read it. It's one, if I had to pick two or three stories in the Bible to say, man, I wish I was there to see that, this is one of them. So they're going around all confused, like, how are we supposed to get these people food? We didn't even bring food. What are we talking about? I'm trying to go into the town to get my own food. What is Jesus talking about? How are we supposed to do this? And part of me thinks that, and this is one of the observations one of my friends brought up, there were probably other people there who did bring food. And this isn't unusual to think because there is somebody in the story, the young boy who brings the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. So it's reasonable to think that he wasn't the only person there that had something. But what we do find is a couple things. He was the only one willing to share and to give what he had. And the disciples took it thinking that they were still going to get off the hook because their response, we have here only 5 loaves and 2 fish, Jesus. He just told them to go get food to feed all the people. They find this boy who's willing to give up his lunch or dinner or whatever, and and the response is, "Hey, well, Jesus, we did what you asked us to do. We have 5 loaves and 2 fish here." Can you imagine the way that they probably would have said that? Like, what is this going to do? I mean, that's exactly what they said. What is so few among so many? This is a deserted place. There's nothing here. Send these people away. Even when they had the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, they're still thinking, this is a deserted place. There's nothing here. This can't do anything for all of these people. What are we wasting our time for? And yet Jesus says, bring them to me. The story obviously goes, he blesses it, he breaks it, and it multiplies like we read before. And I think the cool thing about that is we get to see almost in real time from the disciples' perspective what happens, and especially from the young boy's perspective, what happens when you give something. You're coming from a good place. That young boy was coming from a good place to give what he had, knowing it wasn't going to feed a lot of people, much more than himself, really. But you get to see in real time what it looks like to be coming from a good place and to give and to have more than and to have it stretch further than you thought it could when you thought it was nothing worth giving in the first place. We see it happen first with Jesus. It's a deserted place. It's an empty place, emotionally empty, emotionally drained because of what happened with his cousin. And he's able to have compassion on the multitudes and heal them. He's not healed on the inside, so to speak. You think of your emotions when people pass away and those types of things. He wasn't healed on the inside. He was still wrestling with that and dealing with that, but he was able to heal others. You think of the disciples. This is a deserted place. send them away so they can go get something from somewhere else. They couldn't see it. They weren't able to put the pieces together the ways that Jesus did. But the boy did. You have the same thing happening 3 times here in the story, where the boy is faced with, hey, you might be hungry. Him having the food means that he didn't eat it yet. Like, we don't realize that. It may not even be that he was hungry too. That's why he brought the food. He was thinking about his stomach. So he is hungry. Thumbs up again. Okay. He is hungry, but he gives from his food. So now what does he have? Nothing. And from his nothingness, the little that he had ends up spreading out to feed everybody. It's mind blowing. And for him to see that, he probably had to been standing there like, what is going on? Like, that was my bread. That was my fish. And all this, like, and everybody's eating, so much to the point that there's leftovers. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. One of the big things in this thread, I'm going to tie through this story and the next one, is the importance of abiding. Jesus was able to do the things that he did, as he said, not through his own power, but because of his connection with God. The disciples did great things through their connection with Jesus and through God. What can you and I do through our relationships with God? It's easy to think that we don't have anything to give. It's easy to think, well, I didn't go to school. I didn't do that. I don't have these resources. I don't have that money. We down ourselves all the time, and we think about all that we do not have. When we look at our lives, sometimes we see a deserted place. We see a place that is empty. We see, well, don't come to me for that. You should go over there to get that. This other person has it. You can get it from them, but you can't get it from me. I can't do that for you. But what if Jesus is trying to encourage you and inspire you of what is possible if you spend time with him? It's crazy to think of. And what if you become so convinced and inspired in the abiding with God that you begin to think, well, wait a second. They're trying to feed all of these people and I only have 5 loaves and 2 fish. Well, I'll give what I have. You never know how you never know how far the little you think you have can go. And I think all of us need to realize this. You think of this world. Let's make it practical, all right? Because we're not looking at this without making it practical. You look at this world and you look at the problems and you look at the issues that we have in this world. It's very easy to be overwhelmed and to think, man, there's nothing I can do about this. I don't have anything to give. I don't have the influence. I don't have the power. I don't have the wealth. I don't have the platform. I cannot make a difference. But what if you could? What if the little bit that you give is just enough for one other person, and that one person ends up sharing with somebody else, and so on and so forth? It only takes a spark to get a fire going. It doesn't take much, but it does take somebody willing to fight with the fire to produce the spark. we look at people with these big fires and like, man, that's a good looking fire. I wish I had a fire like that. Well, it had to start somewhere. Are we willing to wrestle with the little thing in the place where it feels like we have nothing to generate the spark? Are we willing to abide with God so he can show us how to create that spark? And are we willing to continue to abide with him so he can fan that flame, that little spark, that little flame into a giant raging inferno? We need to be more open to that reality. I hope that we can be more convinced that the little that we feel that we have can go further than we think. I enjoy studying the Bible. And when it comes to looking at ways to share my enthusiasm of this with others, a lot of it had been through recording videos and posting them on my YouTube channel. And a lot of people don't watch those videos. I don't have hundreds of videos and uh, tens of thousands of subscribers that are trying to see what I have to say. But there are a few. There are a few. So something that's being said and something that's being done is landing with somebody. And it can be hard to put yourself out there if you don't think people will respond, but you never know who it will be that will respond. It could be the smallest of connections that turn into bigger connections down. You just don't know. What I'm saying is that I believe that I have more to offer than I think I have before in the past. And I also believe that for you guys tuning in, that you have more to give than you think you do. And you can make a bigger difference than you think you can. The encouragement for us is to not look at this as a deserted place where there is nothing, and to not look in the mirror and see that we're nothing, we don't have enough. We are enough. And with Jesus, we have enough. And through that relationship, we can do a whole lot of good and a whole lot more than we think we can. So that was really cool there. And even at the end of this particular story, they had leftovers. Tell me, you start with 5 loaves and 2 fish. How the hell you have leftovers? How do you have 12 baskets of leftovers? And contextually, we're talking bushels, baskets like this big around, all right? Probably this deep. You got that many baskets of leftovers from 5 loaves and 2 fish. It's almost a slap in the face. Jesus is like, and the disciples had to carry them too. Oh, you thought there was nothing here? Carry these, carry these leftovers. And you thought there was nothing here. Amazing. But there's power in abiding. There's power in abiding. Now, going on to the next story. This one right here, like I said before, this is my favorite story in the entire Bible. Um, we'll read through it real quick, and I'll come back and make a few points, and we'll wrap this thing up. Matthew 14:22. Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side while he sent the multitudes away. And we'll just build on kind of what we've already said. So the feeding has just happened. This crazy miracle has just happened. Jesus emotionally sapped, healing all these people, and then feeding them all too. The boy being willing, the deserted place, all these factors in play. Right as soon as this is done, Jesus is like, all right, guys, I need my space. Y'all got to go. So he sends the people away. He sends the disciples away. They go. And once the crowds have started leaving, once the disciples have headed down to the boats, he goes into the mountains by himself to pray. And it says that when he was alone there, and it says that now when evening came, he was alone there. So Jesus finally gets his time. It's evening, it's late in the day, and he's up there for a good minute. But he's able to pray, he's able to connect with God in the deserted place. The place, again, where people thought there was nothing. He found the solitude that he found there, and the spending of the time with God was exactly what he needed. Abiding and solitude with God are actually one of the reasons why, one of the odd reasons why I am a Superman fan. I'm actually going to go see the movie tomorrow morning. But Superman's hideout, Batman has the Batcave, right? Aquaman has Atlantis. Superman has the Fortress of Solitude. The Fortress of Solitude. Think about those words for a second. Fortress of Solitude. That is a strong place of being alone and by yourself. That's what the Fortress of Solitude is. When you read through the comics, when you look at the things that Superman, Clark Kent does throughout his experience. When he needs that extra boost of wisdom, when he needs to get recharged, when he needs like that, whatever it is that he needs that he's not getting from his interactions with everyone else, where does he go? To the Fortress of Solitude. I'm going to throw it back here, but if you watch Smallville, a lot of the times when Clark went to the Fortress of Solitude, it was to get answers for things that he didn't have the answers for, that he couldn't get answers for in his immediate surroundings. He needed to be alone in that fortress to get those answers, to get that truth, to get that inspiration. Well, when I read this verse, Matthew 14:23, I see the Fortress of Solitude. And I see Jesus going into his Fortress of Solitude to get the answers that he needed, to get the strength that he needed, to get the recharge that he needed, to get the inspiration that he needed in that space. And then from there, he had what he needed to go back out and continue doing all the good works that he did. It's a powerful allegory. Like, it's a reason why. There's a reason why. So that's what he's doing there. And he's there for hours late in the night. But the boat was now in the middle of the sea. So the disciples have done their part. They left. They're on the boat. Fishermen doing their thing. Not fishing, but just being on the boat. It says it was in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves, for the wind was contrary. Now, I don't know what you think of when you hear the word tossed. I think of baseball, playing catch. But a baseball being tossed back and forth, can you imagine a boat being tossed around in the waves like that? That's the word that's used here to describe what's happening with this boat. It is a violent storm. Okay. And it says for the wind was contrary. And Jesus chooses the fourth watch of the night. And the fourth watch of the night would have been after midnight for sure, like 2 a.m. So Jesus comes from being in the mountain in the late evening to now walking on the water towards the disciples. He was up there by himself in solitude, pondering John, pondering losing his cousin, pondering his mission, gaining strength, becoming inspired, getting the answers, all of those things he had been doing for a number of hours, and now he decides to go and walk on the water towards the disciples. And they see him and they're scared. It's like, oh, it's a ghost. They didn't recognize him. Maybe the storm was so crazy and the waves, and I don't know what it might have looked like for them being there in that moment, but they were freaked out. They might have thought they were dead already, seeing ghosts and stuff like that. They didn't know. But in the midst of their fear, what does Jesus say? And this is one of the big things that stood out to me when we were going through the story today. This is something new that stood out to me going through the story again today. It says they cried out for fear, but immediately Jesus spoke to them saying, "Be of good cheer." Fear and cheer. It's nice because they rhyme, right? But be of good cheer. This phrase is also kind of understood in the context of taking courage. Now, courage is something that we often associate with fear. Well, if you're afraid, you have people who are afraid, and you have the courageous ones who are not afraid, or you have the courageous ones who handle fearful situations well, or the courageous ones, they still get afraid, but because they have courage, they move forward anyway. But when is the last time you heard somebody talk about cheerfulness as an aspect of courage? Oh, that's a game changer for me, man. Because more often than not, in the storms of life that we experience, we're often tempted to just put our heads down and keep on going. And just, we're going to run with this. We're just going to bulldoze through everything else, block out all the noise. It's tunnel vision, baby. Here we go. But he says, be of good cheer. And he's not saying this in a vacuum. He's saying this while standing on the water, the waves that are probably moving around, to a boat to disciples who are on a boat in the middle of the storm that's getting tossed between the waves. Be of good cheer. it's it's a ridiculous picture to paint in your mind's eye. But while I say that, I encourage you, when you read through these stories, visualize it. It's going to look different for everybody, and that's the beautiful thing about it. I think that's the cool thing about when we have these TV shows and productions that try to bring these stories to life, because you get to see so many different people's perspectives on it. And it's not to say that one person's is more accurate than someone else's, but I encourage you, when you read the stories for yourself, visualize it. Make it your own TV show, make it your own movie. And so this crazy scene, they're in the middle of the storm, and Jesus is saying, be of good cheer. Don't be afraid. Be of good cheer. How do you go through struggles? This was one of my big takeaways. How do you go through struggles? Because, like I said, it's easy to get real insular when these things happen, when bad things happen. It's easy to want to shut everybody else out. The last thing on your minds is being cheerful when things are not going how you'd want them to go, and when things are just downright bad. But true courage, I think the cheerful aspect, when I think of cheerfulness, hope is almost a factor of that too. Be of good cheer because you're looking forward, and you can have some kind of a hopeful, um, that's what courage is, right? Believing that things will work out even in the face of the craziness that's going on. In the midst of that fearful situation, you believe you have something that compels you to move forward because you believe you will win. That is the definition of hope. So cheerfulness, being of good cheer, means your your whole demeanor as you go through tough things might be a little bit more on the positive side because of the hope that you have. And I was talking with, well, one of my friends after the main home church discussion, and he said, he brought up a good point. I hadn't even thought of it. He's like, there are so many people in the Bible in different situations who have talked about being joyful in rough times. I think of James, book of James, first few verses of James chapter 1 talk about count it all joy. I have this tattoo I'm designing, and for myself. One day, hopefully it'll go here. One day. We'll see. But one of the I have text on one side in Hebrew, and I have text on the other side that will be in Greek. And the Greek portion says count it all joy. And the fullness of that verse says count it all joy when you fall into various trials and tribulations. It's the same thing that Jesus is talking about here, and it's something that we see all throughout scripture, this pattern. Not just being courageous and bold and strong when it comes to dealing with the fearful situations, but being cheerful, being hopeful, being joyful. Imagine, what does it do? What kind of message does it send to others when you can embody that kind of mentality and presence when you're going through something? Have you seen anyone who's embodied this as they've gone through something, and what has it done for you? What questions does it raise in your mind? How does it make you consider the way that you act and react to things that are happening in your life? It's a game changer. It's a game changer. So that's one of the big ones. Now, I think generally, of course, when I look at Peter going out on the water, there's a lot of things there, because Peter was actually kind of dumb in this scenario. Um, if it's really you, tell me to come out on the water. What if it wasn't? They might have told him to come out anyway, and this dude drowned. End of story. He got lucky it was Jesus. But he did at least have some faith to do that. And Peter, a physical human being, a natural creation, steps out of the boat and does something supernatural. So just that little nugget right there, when we connect with Jesus, when we have faith, when we do take courage, when we take cheer because of and grounded in the relationship that we have with Jesus, the natural can start doing some supernatural stuff. Now, tie it back into the first story. We look at our lives and think, well, this is a deserted place. I don't have that ability. There's no way I could do that. I don't have the faith to do that. But what if God is trying to tell you there's something more there than you thought? What if God is trying to tell you that you're looking at yourself from the natural consequences and the natural things, and you have all of these ideas about how things could go, and Jesus just wants you to take a step out in faith so he can show you that you're capable of something supernatural. It happens here. It can happen for me. It can happen for you. Is one of my favorite aspects about the story. When we focus on Christ, the natural is capable of supernatural. I love it. I love it. Going on down, Peter has his moments because he's out there doing the thing, and then the he starts looking at the waves, takes his eyes off Jesus. He starts to sink. Lord, save me! Jesus is right there, helps him up. They're able to walk back to the boat. It doesn't tell us that in the scripture, but in one of the other, I think it's in John 6, where they're talking about this, where he's talking about this story as well. He says that they welcomed them back into the boat. So Jesus didn't lift Peter out of the water and then they swim back to the boat. Still in the storm. This is still happening. He pulls him out. Jesus is walking on water. Now Peter and Jesus are walking on water back to the boat. They welcome them in the boat. And John's version of the story says that immediately the storm stopped and they were at the shore. But the next thing that really stood out to me, I had a few observations, but this question that I was kind of stuck with. I didn't have an answer to it. Jesus in verse 31 says to Peter as he's stretching out his hand to lift him, says, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" Now think about it. "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" If somebody has little faith, of course they would doubt. It's a redundant statement to make. Now, understanding that most of the things Jesus said were done not because he was necessarily looking for an answer. A lot of the times he knew the answer. It was more that he was trying to teach a lesson or express something specific by the way he expressed himself. And I was actually sitting in the back at the house, behind the circle, the main circle. And after I had said my points and the things that I enjoyed about the story, I just kind of sat there and listened to what everyone else had to say. And it was really cool because as I listened to the different perspectives and the different things that everyone else was seeing from the story, they started answering my question. I thought that was so cool. And in short, what a lot of people responded to, or a lot of people's responses, that's what I'm trying to say. A lot of people's responses started answering this question. And it's like, well, why did you doubt? Is the question that Jesus asks, but it isn't the question that he was asking. The real question he was asking was, why do you have little faith? Yeah. And it's powerful because obviously Jesus would know. Someone with little faith would doubt, but that was the point. Why does he have little faith? Think about it. What is happening right now? He was literally just walking on water a few seconds ago. Why do you have little faith? Wait a second. They're in the boat, right? Why? Because Jesus sent them from the beach after what? Carrying down 12 baskets overloaded with leftovers from what? Being in a deserted place with a young boy who had 5 loaves and 2 fish that ended up feeding a multitude. Why do you have little faith? You saw that, right? You were there for that, right? Why do you have little faith? That was the question. Not why do you doubt? Why do you have little faith? And so for me, when I think about it in terms of a takeaway, it's a hard one because the immediate question, I wrote it down here in my Bible, it's like, do I have a legitimate reason to lack faith? And maybe that's a question we can all ask ourselves. Do we have a legitimate reason to lack faith? There are a lot of things in life that we go through, a lot of moments and things that we experience that will cause us to lose faith. And my friend, I think it's something, a song with Janet Jackson with the line, what have you done for me lately? And sure, in relationships that are pretty shallow, that's that's the measurement of them. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to always be doing something lately. You should always, if you're in a relationship, for sure. But when you forget everything that's led up to that point and you're only looking for your own gain in the moment, I don't agree with that. I think you miss out on something, and it's like somebody could be working from zero all the way to 100, but because you have this "what have you done for me lately" mentality, you're looking at them like a zero still. It's not fair, and it's not accurate. It's not true. But again, Peter was doing this in the moment. Why do you have little faith? You've seen all of these things. Why are you still acting like you're at zero when you're not? That's what Jesus was saying. And I have to admit, despite the storms and the crazy things that are going on right now in my life, I talked about that in the stream yesterday. Like, there's a lot of things going on that I wish were not going on. There are a lot of situations that I wish were going a different way. There are a lot of things that that I wish were just better. But because I'm in the storm right now does not give me the right to say that I have no reason to have faith. I've seen too much, and you might be in the same predicament. So, I mean, if that lands, it lands. To each his own. And I understand that maybe there are people out there who feel like they haven't seen certain things, but what if it's a matter of perspective? What if it's really taking a critical look and realizing, oh, wait a second, yeah, something like that did happen, or I wasn't expecting this and it did go this way, or I did get that break. And so many awesome things in our lives happen that we take for granted, and it's just like it is what it is. And then we look at Jesus like, well, what have you done for me lately? Not realizing the fact that we're even here is a miracle still. It's wild. But that was my big takeaway. It's like it's an encouragement to be cheerful and joyful and hopeful in the midst of the storm. That's an encouragement to me, and I feel like that can be an encouragement to you too. But finishing up the story, it says they got into the boat, the wind ceased. Then those who were in the boat came and worshiped, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." Which again is kind of humorous because they're very hot and cold. They're in the storm, saying, "Oh, we're gonna die. Who is this ghost?" And they step into the boat. The storm ceases. Truly, you are the Son of God. And then the last few verses are pretty cool here too. When they crossed over, they came to the land of Gennesaret, and when the men of that place recognized him, they sent out into all that surrounding region, brought to him all who were sick, and begged him that they might only touch the hem of his garment, and as many as touched it were made perfectly well. So the story ends up coming full circle, right? The same thing that started these two, that bookends the beginning of these two uh, crazy stories, is Jesus healing people, and they go through all of this stuff and this crazy miracle and this crazy experience, this crazy storm, crazy everything, and they get to the other side of all of that, and as soon as they land, it's back to business, healing everybody, and they were made perfectly well. Amazing. Um, I love the story, and one last thing, because yeah, I talked about how abiding fit into uh, both of these two stories, but I want to take it one step further. A lot of times, especially if you're growing up in a Christian context, for me, Adventism in particular, devotions and the intentional time that we take to spend with Jesus, all right, that that abiding, what we do to find our moments to pray, to spend time with Jesus. Oftentimes, it's like, well, it has to be done in the morning. You start your day with that, and it sounds good. And I'm not saying that it's wrong, but here in the story, we see Jesus finding the time wherever he can get it. It's late in the evening. He goes up into the mountain by himself to pray. He goes into his fortress of solitude, and he's there for hours, past midnight. That's okay. Jesus did it. So think about it like this. When we look at devotions and abiding and spending time with Jesus as something we need to check into, that's when, in my mind, in my opinion, the morning becomes like, well, it has to be at this point. I think it's good if you can, but I think what the story tells us is that if you are abiding, that is a continual thing. Abiding is not something that you're checking in and out of. It's a state of being. So If you are abiding, you connect in the morning, okay, cool. You connect at night, okay, cool. The point is that you are connecting. And if you do that, that's where you win. So I say that to say we all have different schedules. We all have different lives. We all have different things that take up our time. Some of us have an hour here. Some of us have 5 minutes here. Guess what? That's okay. Take the little time that you have, whenever it is, to try to connect with Jesus so you can start abiding and so you can continue to abide. It's not, a very bad perspective I used to have on this growing up was, well, if I didn't do it in the morning, then I'm going to have a bad day now. And what does that do for the way that I interact with the rest of my day? What does that do for how I engage with people through the rest of the day? If I'm always looking at myself as being at a lack and as a deficit, whereas no, it's continual abiding. So because I can connect with him anytime, I'm good at any time. And I can relate to people through the goodness of God at any time. I think there's some power there. And I think there's a lot of power for us to gain from spending time in the fortress of solitude with Jesus. So I'm gonna leave it there. Thanks for tuning in. Like, subscribe, share. We'll be here for more stuff later. Uh, but yeah, this is fun stuff. I love it. Oh, here we go. Something I wrote in my Bible here. I'll close on with this. When we focus on Christ, impossible ceases to exist. And the very command of Christ is the power to complete it. Jesus told Peter to come, and he was able to walk on water. What can he do for you? In a place where you feel like you have nothing, he can do a lot more than you think. All right. Catch you next time. We out here and we out. Peace.